David Dyment is our guest. He's a professor of political science, and he spent much time in Ottawa at the Governor General's residence. I assume was that under Adrian Clarkson's watch?
That was under Adrian Clarkson, and that was a really fascinating job. If you want to talk a little bit about it.
A little bit. John Ralston Saul, of course, was there.
A bit of an inspiration for me in writing this book. I observed a high-powered author doing his job for a couple of years, and purposely tried to learn from him. Yeah.
And what did you learn in that job?
Well, in watching him, kind of the fierce drive of a successful and effective author.
And his passion for Canada.
Oh, passion and real great intelligence, and obviously extremely capable, also an extremely hard worker.
Very much so. But wouldn't you think, like you look at the subprime meltdown, and our banks seem to be a little better, and we're doing a little better, and we had the Olympics, and we were so hot at the Olympics, and all the Americans came here and thought we were swell. But there's still sort of that underlying, like we're not them, we're not quite as good, we don't have the power, we don't have the National Guard, a little bit. Did you find that in your interviews? When you were talking to people about our identity crisis, is it still alive and well?
I think Canadians do have a bit of an inferiority complex, and you mentioned John Ralston Saul, something that he would say, and the book is no way derivative of his work, but is we have a colonial mentality. And people that have not been colonials, I think the example he gives is Bhutan. Bhutan, the north of India, has never been colonized. And the vision of those people just does not include a colonial mindset. There's no kind of default position to an imperial center.
Sure. We have a sense of vulnerability and fear at times. And I'm a dual citizen, so it's hard for me. I lived on both sides of the border and could live still on both sides of the border, and I love this country. But I could go home and people say, you wouldn't.
Right.
Like, you wouldn't go back there. I say, yeah, I would. Like, there's great places to live in the United States.
Oh, I know.
Trade, big, especially here, softwood lumber and all of that. The NAFTA, including Mexico in our trade deals, what's your take on that?
Well, Mexico was used consciously by advocates of continentalism to say, if we work closely with the Americans with Mexico, that's okay. It's that we should really think about ourselves as citizens of North America, of a North American community, because multilateralism, getting other players at the table, is the way to engage the Americans. But we need to have more players than simply from the Yukon to the Yucatan. We need a free trade agreement of the Americas to bring other countries into that multilateral setting.
Right.
And there's nothing happening with the free trade agreement of the Americas. So that was used really quite consciously as an argument to make us feel more comfortable thinking about a North American community, a closer relationship with the U.S. And I talk about in doing the Continental, the left in this debate, the nationalist left would say things like, yes, we're really going to work with Mexico, we're going to work for worker solidarity and environmental issues, and think about North America as a community. Right. So you really had the both sides of this debate, the way it's polarized, saying, yeah, let's in effect engage the Americans more easily because it includes Mexico, and I think that's a mistake, and I think it's an example where both sides of the debate didn't serve us well. So if I may just say, this book, and one of the reasons the publisher was excited about it, it's really the only book for general readers that doesn't come off of one of the two song sheets that we're always being asked to sing off of.
So are you saying Mexico is not that important to Canada, bottom line, or what are you saying?
Well, I'm saying that's how Mexico is most important to me when I think about the relationship. That's the point I'm most interested in making. The issues along the American-Mexican border are so different than our issues.
They're their issues.
Yeah, and so when we meet the three of them on those issues, the three of us, it's very hard to make good progress, and you get American officials, and I've interviewed Canadian counterparts, and they're frustrated because they come up from the Mexican border and say, well, these are our big issues, and that all spills into things that aren't even happening on our border.
Sure.
So we have moved away from that. I mean, Mexico is a wonderful partner, a leader in Latin America and Central America. and it's really important that we be very active in Mexico City with our embassy, but not in the first instance as a way to engage the Americans.
Homeland security, other issue, but in the 49th parallel, obviously the border that we care about, and getting gas and oil across that border.
Well, that's huge, and that's part of the reason we're a muskox or a moose. 40% of the natural gas in California comes from Canada.
40%,
yeah,
that's
1
high.
in 10 cars has its tank full of gasoline from Canada.
So almost half our production.
Yeah, and that's a whole issue about energy. 37 of the American states, their #1 export market is Canada. More is going across the Ambassador Bridge at Windsor, trade of exports from the United States than all of what they export to Japan, and they export more to us than they export to all of the 27 countries of the European Union. That, Fanny, does not add up to a mouse. We got to stop thinking about ourselves as a mouse.
Exactly.
This is a moose.
We are a moose.
Yes, sir.
We are the
yes,
moose.
ma'am.
Yes. What about water?
Yeah, and you know, on the energy, we're in a situation where we can't think about our reserves. We're coming to a place where we'll be exporting about 75% of our natural gas and our oil to the United States.
And they need it.
And they need it, and it would be short-sighted of us to reduce that. We can't do it anyway because of the free trade agreement. Why would we hurt our major partner? Why would we diminish our own economy by giving them problems with their economy by not making the energy available? On the other hand, we are a separate country, and I think it's important we not in the first instance think about North American energy security. How about Canadian energy security as the starting point? And to do that, let's allow ourselves, as a grown-up country, to think about our reserves. How much do we have for Canadians in the first instance, which isn't selfish, it's just what any country would do and is asked to do in the international system. Do we have 15 years of reserves of natural gas? How do you want to use it? Do you want to heat the water to get the sand out of the bitumen, to have the tar sands oil?
Or not.
Or not. How do you want to do those kind of things? And we're not allowing ourselves to have a debate. And that's not a challenge to Alberta. That's a challenge to us as the stewards in Alberta, and where they would lead the debate, and for all Canada to think about our children and grandchildren for the next 1,500 years.
How much oil and gas will we need in the future, and where are we going to get it, and how is that going to work, and what are the environmental considerations?
It's not anti-American to say that. It's really important that we allow ourselves to say that without feeling we're being anti-American and without being told we're being anti-American. And you know what? The Americans would get that.
Of course, because they do it.
Yes, exactly.
Of course they get it. Yeah. They say, me first.
Yes, yes.
We'll take care of us, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. We'll export other things
and
like
we'll
democracy.
even do our best to take care of you, because it's important that you do well so we do well. But we're also going to allow ourselves to think fully into our national project.
In case of earthquake, we will send the National Guard from California to British Columbia. Yes, we will, because British Columbia doesn't have a National Guard. But there are other things we will not send you if we need them. And if you look at the softwood lumber debate, that was so clear about how that was driven and what was going on and who was really in control.
On the softwood,
it was the lobbyists more than
we got $4 billion of the $5 billion back. And there was the dispute settlement mechanism that ultimately got us that money back, and we traded the proportional sharing clause on energy, which has us exporting so much energy to the U.S., for the dispute settlement mechanism. This mechanism was, so there's a dispute, we would be engaged, and we'd have a rational outcome. Well, as you know, they owed us $5 billion, and Harper in his first term was able to get $4 billion of it, and that's kind of annoying. Obviously, for some people, it's infuriating. But when you're dealing with the world's hyperpower and you get 80%. You're doing all right.
Spruce, fir, pine.
You mentioned water. Can we just...
Yes, let's go back, because for decades we have diverted water, as you know, to river systems in the United States. So where does that fit into the picture?
Okay, so I've just made the case that we need to be more wary with the Americans on energy. And that would normally be thought to come from the nationalist perspective. On water, when I was writing the book, everyone would say to me, water. You have to really think about water. It's a terrible thing. We're going to sell all our water to the Americans. They're hot on the trail after our water. And how do you be so preoccupied about not doing anything with the Americans on water while selling 75% of your energy to the Americans? How do you do those things at the same time? And what I found on water is there's a great deal of emotion around it, which is fueled. And
Right.
it's a core, we're 98%
Sure.
water, so it's really core to not just our identity,
Right.
but our being. And we at 30 municipalities across the border are moving water, often to the benefit of Canada. We move water, as many people wouldn't know, why would they, from what would have otherwise gone into James Bay into Lake Superior to make up for water that's leaving in Chicago. So and doing the Continental, when it comes to water, it's really a continental phenomenon. And we do a lot of management of water already. So it seems as if we don't get the International Joint Commission and the really, you could argue, sound and sensible management of water we do with the Americans. Rather, we generally, as people and in society, have this great emotional charge around water. Don't work with the Americans with the water, and
Right.
because it'll mean selling it.
And we could run out.
Well,
or something.
I'm not sure we
Or-
could run out, but
Let's hope not. Not in this, not in this city. But what you're really saying is see Americans as the solution, not the problem.
Yeah.
Like rethink. The U.S. Relationship is not so much about them; it is about us. And it's not the USA that's the problem. And you said this very
Yeah.
clearly. It's how we think
Right.
about the USA.
Yeah, and that's the 12th of the 12 steps. And the publisher said, 12 steps would be nice. You've got a rehabilitation project, give us 12 steps. And that is the 12th step. The first step, interestingly enough, is there's no big solution to this situation. And even now with the perimeter border security conversation, one of the things that comes out from civil society, participants in the debate, op-eds and so on, is we'll give you a big imaginative silver bullet solution to this. That's not over the centuries how we are going to tame continentalism to advance our national interests. And one of the points I make is we are advancing our national ideologies and not always thinking about our national interests in that conversation. And I think we make a mistake when we say there's a big magic bullet solution to this relationship.
No magic bullet. Not anywhere.
Yeah.
I thank you.
I thank you.
Nice to see you.
You too.
Doing the Continental and New Canadian-American Relationship, David Dyment, forward by Bob Ray.